Chapter 4, Flight 93 and the Heroes of Pennsylvania. Section 1, Early Morning Preparations at Newark. At Newark International Airport, the sun had risen fully over the horizon, bathing the tarmac in pale gold. Passengers gathered at Gate 17, chatting, sipping coffee, checking tickets. Among them, Ziad Jarrah and his team of hijackers moved quietly but deliberately. Jarrah straightened his jacket, adjusted his tie, and smiled politely at passing airport staff. Security screens scanned small knives, pocket knives, and personal items, and all within permissible limits. The hijackers carried concealed blades and tools, designed to seize control of the plane, trained over months of meticulous preparation. The boarding process appeared routine to the casual observer. Families with children, business people, college students, all entered the plane unaware of the deadly plan about to unfold. Section 2, Boarding Flight 93. 8:42 a.m., Flight 93 began boarding. The Boeing 757, bound for San Francisco, hummed quietly on the tarmac. Passengers entered, some chatting, some reading, others nervously checking carry-on luggage. The hijackers split positions strategically, cockpit, mid-cabin, rear, ready to execute their plan. Crew members greeted travelers with warmth, unaware of the threat among them. Flight attendants ensured everyone was seated, stowed bags, and reviewed safety procedures. Some passengers noticed the unusual demeanor of certain individuals but dismissed it as stress or fatigue. Jarrah moved to the cockpit with precision, testing the crew's reactions. Every step was rehearsed, every detail calculated. Section 3, Takeoff. 8:42 a.m., Flight 93 lifted from Newark into the clear morning sky. Passengers settled, unaware that this would be their final flight in ordinary life. Businessmen reviewed documents. Children fidgeted in their seats. Parents whispered reassurances. The hijackers remained calm, blending in. Jarrah and his associates communicated silently, coordinating their actions down to the second. Inside, the passengers remained oblivious, reading, resting, or conversing. Section 4, Hijacking Initiation. Approximately 45 minutes into the flight, the hijackers struck. Using concealed knives and bludgeons, they forced their way into the cockpit. Passengers realized too late that their plane had been overtaken. Screams and chaos erupted. Some passengers immediately understood the gravity of the situation. A few brave individuals, including Todd Beamer, Tom Burnett, Mark Bingham, and Jeremy Glick, began to formulate a plan. Phone calls to loved ones revealed the horrors of the attacks in New York and Washington. They learned of Flight 11 and Flight 175 and realized that the hijackers intended to crash Flight 93 into a significant target, possibly the White House or the Capitol. Section 5, Passenger Revolt Planning. The four men organized quietly, sharing information with other passengers. They determined that action was necessary. Submission meant death. Todd Beamer whispered courageously, "Let's roll." Mark Bingham assessed strength and coordination of passengers. Tom Burnett relayed information from phone calls, ensuring everyone understood the stakes. The group coordinated, creating a plan to storm the cockpit and prevent the hijackers from reaching Washington. Every passenger who joined faced fear, adrenaline, and determination simultaneously. Section 6, Cockpit Struggle. The hijackers remained unaware of the full extent of passenger organization until it was too late. At 10:03 a.m., the revolt began. Passengers stormed the cockpit, overpowering the hijackers in a violent, desperate struggle. The plane shook violently. Seats were overturned, cries and screams filled the cabin. Jarrah attempted to regain control, maneuvering the plane erratically. The struggle caused the aircraft to pitch and roll, throwing passengers and crew into walls and seats. Blood mixed with sweat. The air was thick with fear and determination. Section 7, Ground Perspective in Pennsylvania. Below, in the rolling fields near Shanksville, locals heard a low rumble. Farm animals stirred nervously. The sound of engines, unusual and low, drew attention. Some residents instinctively looked up, witnessing an airliner descending rapidly. Emergency responders were alerted almost immediately, racing to the location. By the time they arrived, the aircraft had already crashed, leaving a gaping crater in the earth and a vast cloud of smoke rising. Section 8, Flight 93 Impact and Casualties. The plane crashed into a field at high speed. Every passenger aboard, except those who had attempted to take action, perished instantly. The revolt had prevented the plane from reaching its intended target, saving countless lives in Washington. The wreckage was catastrophic. Twisted metal, scattered debris, and smoke engulfed the area. First responders, including local police, fire, and medical personnel, coordinated rescue and investigation efforts. No survivors remained, but the heroism of passengers had altered history. Section 9, Psychological Perspective. Inside Flight 93, the final minutes were a maelstrom of courage, terror, and human resolve. The passengers who stood up against the hijackers displayed extraordinary bravery, understanding the stakes and acting decisively, despite almost certain death. The hijackers' precision was thwarted by the human spirit, a testament to courage and determination in the face of overwhelming fear. Families would later recount phone calls filled with calm, resolve, and messages of love in the final moments. Section 10, Media and Global Awareness. News of Flight 93's crash reached national and international media rapidly. Reporters conveyed that the plane had crashed in Pennsylvania and speculated on the potential target. The world began to grasp the scope of the coordinated attacks. 2 towers in New York, the Pentagon in Washington, and a 4th plane prevented from hitting its target by courageous passengers. Panic, shock, and awe spread globally. Chapter 5. Aftermath, Collapse, Chaos, and Heroism. Section 1. Streets of Manhattan. After the second plane struck the South Tower at 9:03 a.m., the streets surrounding the World Trade Center became a maelstrom of panic and confusion. Cars swerved to avoid falling debris. Pedestrians screamed, ran, and ducked for cover. Smoke, thick and black, billowed into the air, reducing visibility to almost zero. Ash rained down on stunned onlookers, covering them like a heavy, gritty snowfall. Civilians instinctively sought shelter. Lobbies, stairwells, and nearby buildings. Others attempted to capture video or photographs, unaware that moments later they would be engulfed by chaos of unprecedented scale. Section 2. Firefighter Response. Firefighters, already ascending the North Tower, were now faced with simultaneous crises. Dispatch radios crackled with urgency. Unit 1, multiple floors, both towers. All units proceed with caution. Firefighters climbed stairs laden with heavy gear, smoke-choking corridors. Every second mattered. Some were trapped on floors above impact zones, others risking lives to rescue trapped civilians. The bravery of these men and women was extraordinary. Their radio communications were filled with courage, frustration, and determination. We are inside. Heavy smoke. People need help. Stairwell blocked. Section 3. Office Workers' Perspective. Inside the towers, employees were desperate. Some had ascended to safety. Others trapped on impact floors struggled to breathe amid smoke and heat. Many left messages for loved ones on cell phones and landlines. I love you. I'm trying to get out. Pray for me. Chaos unfolded floor by floor. The North Tower had been hit first, the South Tower second. People evacuated as quickly as possible, navigating debris, broken glass, and panicked crowds. Section 4. Collapse of the South Tower. At 9:59 a.m., 56 minutes after the first impact, the South Tower began to collapse. A thunderous roar shook Manhattan. Floors pancaked upon each other, sending clouds of dust and debris outward. Street-level chaos intensified as people fled blindly. Emergency responders shouted over the roar, guiding civilians to safety. The ground trembled under the collapse. Cars were overturned, windows shattered, and ash coated everything. Section 5, North Tower Collapse. By 10:28 a.m., the North Tower, already heavily damaged, succumbed to the fires and structural failure. Its collapse released another enormous cloud of dust, debris and smoke engulfing surrounding streets. Manhattan was unrecognizable. The skyline altered forever. Rescue efforts continued despite near-zero visibility. Police and firefighters coordinated, pulling survivors from rubble, carrying injured civilians to medical stations, and clearing debris to prevent further casualties. Section 6, WTC-7 and additional collapses. Later that day at 5:20 p.m., TC-7 collapsed due to fire and structural damage, adding another layer to the destruction. Emergency crews were exhausted but pressed forward, determined to rescue any remaining survivors and secure the area. Media coverage captured each collapse live, broadcasting the devastation worldwide. Panic spread globally as viewers realized the magnitude of the coordinated attack. Section 7, Emergency Medical Response. Hospitals in New York City were overwhelmed. Triage centers were set up nearby. Ambulances transported the injured. Medical personnel worked tirelessly amid chaos, treating burns, fractures, smoke inhalation, and psychological trauma. Psychologists and counselors were deployed to help witnesses and survivors cope with the magnitude of the events. Families waited anxiously for news of loved ones. Phone lines overwhelmed with desperate calls. Section 8, Media Coverage. From 9:03 a.m. onward, media outlets reported in real time. Helicopters provided live footage of smoke and fire. Reporters narrated with urgency. "We are witnessing an unprecedented attack. Towers engulfed in smoke. Casualties are expected to be very high." Global awareness of the attack spread within minutes. Citizens worldwide were glued to televisions, radios, and the internet, witnessing history unfold in real time. Section 9. Political and military response. The White House and Pentagon went on high alert. President Bush was briefed repeatedly. Military jets scrambled to monitor. U.S. airspace implemented nationwide groundings. Intelligence agencies coordinated to understand the scope and prevent further attacks. Communication lines buzzed with activity, decisions made under extreme pressure. The nation realized it was under siege, and the U.S. government quickly mobilized all resources to respond. Section 10. Psychological impact and heroism. Survivors displayed remarkable courage. Civilians helped strangers, guided each other to safety, and provided first aid where possible. First responders risked lives repeatedly. Stories emerged of firefighters ascending towers as civilians descended, of police officers carrying injured citizens, of ordinary people performing extraordinary acts. Amid destruction, human resilience and heroism were unmistakable. Chapter 6, National and Global Response. Section 1, White House in Crisis. At 8:50 a.m., President George W. Bush was in a Florida classroom, reading to elementary school children. News of Flight 11's impact had just reached his aides. Initially, it was assumed to be a tragic accident. But as details of Flight 175 hitting the South Tower came in, the gravity of the situation became undeniable. The President's Chief of Staff and National Security advisor urgently briefed him. Phones rang incessantly. Military communications were live. Every second was critical. Plans were made to relocate the President to secure locations if further attacks were imminent. Section 2. FAA and NORAD response. Across the country, the Federal Aviation Administration scrambled. Air traffic controllers immediately grounded flights in affected regions, tried to contact hijacked planes, and coordinated with NORAD for military interception. The North American Aerospace Defense Command faced unprecedented challenges. Fighter jets were scrambled from multiple bases to intercept aircraft over U.S. airspace. Controllers tracked each hijacked plane's altitude, speed, and trajectory, updating the White House and Department of Defense in real time. Every second was tense. Decisions had to be made without precedent. Section 3, Military Scramble. Fighter jets from Langley, Otis, and Andrews Air Force bases took off, armed but uncertain about engagement rules. Pilots were briefed. Intercept hijacked planes, but avoid civilian casualties if possible. Radar operators tracked all commercial flights, noting deviations. Flights were rerouted or ordered to land immediately. Military personnel, for the first time, experienced a national-scale air threat with multiple hijacked planes simultaneously. Section 4. Global media coverage. By mid-morning, news networks around the world were broadcasting live. In London, BBC reporters narrated the unfolding disaster, showing images of the burning towers. In Tokyo, NHK covered U.S. airspace grounding. CNN, Fox News, and other networks replayed footage of both tower impacts. Viewers across continents realized the magnitude of the attacks. Panic and disbelief spread. Stock markets froze as traders tried to understand the situation. Section 5. Emergency Response Coordination. Emergency Operations Centers coordinated response across New York City, Washington, D.C., and surrounding regions. Police, firefighters, and medical units were deployed in record numbers. Hospitals triaged victims, treated injuries, and provided psychological support for survivors. The coordination was chaotic but heroic. Each unit acted with professionalism and courage, often improvising in the absence of complete information. Section 6. Psychological Impact on Citizens. Across the United States, citizens faced fear, confusion, and grief. Families watched television coverage, unable to contact loved ones in New York or Washington. Millions called relatives and friends seeking reassurance. Workplaces and schools initiated lockdowns. Security measures were heightened nationwide. The sense of vulnerability was profound. Americans realized that domestic attacks were now a real threat. Section 7. Political and international response. World leaders reacted with shock and solidarity. International media broadcast U.S. government statements. NATO convened emergency meetings. Foreign governments increased security in embassies in major cities. U.S. officials began planning a comprehensive investigation to identify the perpetrators. Intelligence agencies across multiple countries coordinated, exchanging information rapidly. Section 8. Symbolic actions and leadership. President Bush addressed the nation later that day, emphasizing unity, resilience, and determination. The speech aimed to calm fears, honor victims, and reassure citizens that the government was in control. The nation collectively mourned while simultaneously preparing for a response. Flags were lowered, memorials improvised at offices and schools, and spontaneous gatherings occurred to honor first responders. Section 9. Media, communication, and public information. Television, radio, and newspapers became the lifeline of information. Live updates were continuous. Journalists risked safety to report from Manhattan, covering fires, rescues, and collapsing structures. Social and psychological impacts were recorded. Fear, grief, heroism, and confusion shaped the national consciousness. The attacks were no longer isolated incidents. They were historic events, altering the course of the 21st century. Section 10. End-of-day reflection. As the day ended, the nation was in shock. Recovery and investigation plans were underway. Emergency personnel continued operations through nightfall. Families searched for missing loved ones. Leaders around the world expressed condolences and solidarity. The attacks had created immediate chaos, but they also revealed courage, resilience, and determination. The response of ordinary citizens, emergency personnel, and government officials reflected the strength of the nation under unprecedented pressure. Chapter 7. Legacy, Heroes, and Remembrance. Section 1. Survivors' Stories. In the aftermath of 9/11, those who survived the towers, Pentagon, or nearby areas recounted harrowing experiences. Office workers described climbing through smoke-filled stairwells, helping colleagues, guiding strangers, and witnessing unimaginable destruction. Flight 93's passengers became immortalized as heroes. Todd Beamer, Mark Bingham, Tom Burnett, and Jeremy Glick had sacrificed themselves to prevent further destruction. Each survivor carried both trauma and inspiration. They recounted, "We faced fear, but we acted together." Courage found in desperation. Section 2. First responders' heroism. Firefighters, police officers, and paramedics had become symbols of bravery. Firefighters ascended towers knowing collapse was possible, rescuing dozens of trapped civilians. Police officers coordinated evacuations amidst debris, smoke, and chaos. Medics treated injuries on streets, improvising triage centers, and working tirelessly for hours. Stories emerged of selflessness, where individuals risked or sacrificed their lives to save strangers. Section 3. Families and Grief. Families of victims were thrust into national and personal tragedy. Parents, siblings, and spouses struggled with sudden loss. Children coped with absence, often receiving support from community and counseling services. Memorials, vigils, and ceremonies began immediately. As communities gathered to honor the dead, the emotional impact rippled worldwide, with messages of support pouring in from every continent. Section 4. Rebuilding and Memorial Efforts. Reconstruction began slowly. The One World Trade Center site became both a symbol of resilience and a memorial to lost lives. Survivors, families, and architects collaborated to design spaces of reflection. National September 11th. Memorial and Museum opened, chronicling events, heroes, and artifacts of tragedy. Vigils were held annually, connecting generations to history and remembrance. Through rebuilding, New York and the nation honored those lost while asserting the resilience of human spirit. Section 5. Political and Social Impact. The attacks reshaped U.S. policy and society. National security protocols increased. The Department of Homeland Security was created. Travel, aviation, and intelligence protocols were overhauled. Internationally, Global anti-terrorism coalitions formed. Societies grappled with balance between security and civil liberties, and discussions on geopolitics evolved in response to 9/11. Section 6. Psychological and cultural impact. Americans and global citizens processed trauma collectively. Literature, film, and art captured the emotional narrative, memorializing heroism and grief. The courage of passengers, first responders, and ordinary citizens became cultural icons. The event catalyzed reflection on humanity's vulnerability and resilience in the face of extreme adversity. Section 7. Global unity and awareness. Countries worldwide expressed solidarity. International communities held memorials and moments of silence. Governments reinforced security and intelligence cooperation. Citizens around the world reflected on global terrorism, promoting discussions on peace, security, and resilience. The attacks changed the perception of safety and connected humanity in shared grief and resolve. Section 8. Remembering heroes and everyday courage. Individuals who helped strangers became celebrated alongside first responders and passengers. Stories of bravery were recounted in schools, media, and history books. The mantra of courage, unity, and resilience became central to national consciousness. The legacies of the fallen inspired generations, emphasizing that ordinary people could achieve extraordinary heroism under extreme circumstances. Section 9. Legacy of 9/11. Infrastructure, policy, culture, and memory were forever altered. Memorials and museums ensure the lessons. Courage and losses are never forgotten. Societies worldwide reflected on vulnerability, security, and the human capacity for bravery. 9/11 became not only a historical event but also a timeless story of resilience, heroism, and the human spirit. Section 10. Closing reflections. The events of September 11, 2001 changed the world. Yet amidst destruction, human courage and resilience shone. From passengers on Flight 93 to firefighters in New York, ordinary individuals made extraordinary sacrifices. The story of 9/11 is one of terror, tragedy, and loss, but also of unity, heroism, and hope. Humanity, tested at its extremes, found in itself the strength to endure, rebuild, and remember.